think about it today, any employee can take out their credit card and buy a new tool. That didn't exist before. Before, everything was top down. You convince a CIO, this was the bundle, this is what you were going to do, and they pushed it down. Sometimes the CIO bought tools that weren't used. And now that you've empowered employees that they can find a tool and just buy it, I just don't think we're ever going back to a fully bundled world of enterprise software.
Do you think we're also entering a world, sorry, this again is unfair because it's off schedule, but do you think we're entering a world of increased churn though? Because with the reduction in friction to purchase, you're inherently going to see an increased level of churn potentially. How do you think about the relationship between reducing friction and increased churn?
I think what we have done is we've created an environment where the quality of the software is way more important than it used to be for enterprise software. People need to love the software. And if it's not getting you what you need, if it's too hard to use, you will churn. So absolutely, the bar is now set much higher for quality. And if you don't meet that, you're going to churn quickly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree in terms of that product expectation. I do want to move though to the final element though, which is kind of the customer base themselves. You know, their workflows and structure, as we said, been totally turned upside down by COVID. So what's been the biggest changes in terms of the customer interaction between maybe you and them in this period?
So initially, we were really worried. You're not getting on a plane anymore, right? You're not going to be meeting customers face to face. How is that going to work? And what we found is it works a lot better because we can meet more customers because you're not wasting time getting on a plane and talking to people. So you can actually talk to way more people than you were before. Again, we're using Slack, the product, very heavily here. We're seeing one of the biggest use cases of Slack Connect is customer support. And so we're seeing that with our customers, and we're seeing that what we do. I talked about our champions program. Also, our customer success teams use Slack Connect to interact with our customers. So we're finding that we actually get a much tighter loop than we did before, and people were willing to come on board with this new technology much faster. So we've seen a huge increase in that.
Can I ask, how do you think about, sorry, again, off schedule, I'm terrible at sticking to schedule, my word, but how do you think about the relationship between customer success and product? Because they need to have incredibly tight feedback loops. How do you think about creating those feedback loops and optimizing that relationship?
It's so important. We get feedback from so many different avenues that are all incredibly important, but nothing substitutes from a product manager hearing from the customer directly. So customer support is super important. We rely on customer support to give us a lot of feedback. We have pretty robust processes of how we get feedback through customer support and Twitter and our customer experience team. But we also have objectives for product managers talking directly to customers, either through a shared channel or through a meeting. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Final one that I do have to ask is like, you know, with the lack of certainty and with the changes that we've seen in customer engagement and interaction, what would you say are some of the biggest surprises in the way that customer engagement has changed over this period?
I think the biggest surprise is the pace of innovation. You know, when we started with COVID, there were all these articles that innovation is going to stop and it's so hard to work remotely and nobody's going to get anything done. What we've seen is that customers really embrace digital transformation, and like large customers, tens of thousands of employees on a dime turn to using Slack wall to wall, where before COVID, they would have had these long rollouts and change control. And all of a sudden we're like, we have no choice. We got to do this. And so we just saw pace increase in ways that people wouldn't have thought they could. And same with us at Slack. Our pace of innovation increased since the pandemic. Some people are like, oh, let's take less objectives because we don't know what's going to happen. Where, again, back to what I said in the beginning, motivation and purpose was so strong that we wanted to fix problems for our customers and ourselves. So I was really impressed with how the pace increased.
Totally with you in terms of that increase in pace. I do have to ask, in terms of your own work style, when you look back now, so like for me, I have adopted a love of candles. It's like this serene environment that I find incredibly calming. And now, like, don't ask, but I've become a real nerd on like scented candles. I know I shouldn't be admitting this publicly, but like that in mind, and it's really helped me in my work environment, my workflow. Have you made any changes to the environment you work, the times you work, the way you work, that has actually been quite instrumental to you getting through this period productively?
I think in the beginning, I didn't think this was going to last for long. So I didn't pay much attention to my environment. And then slowly I got a stand-up desk. I got a second monitor. I got an external camera. So over the course of maybe the first quarter, I just kept improving my environment and that was much better. Like one, just ergonomically doing that. And the second was having a switch at the end of the day at a certain time, you move rooms. It sounds trivial, but if you stay in what is your office, even if it's your home, you feel like you're always working. Even if I'm on my laptop later, I'm in the living room. I'm not in the office. And having a time where you make that move and also trying to do something physical, like take a walk or work out, became even more important.
I've got to ask, you mentioned the standing desk, the multiple screens, the camera. Which one's like the must and the biggest impact?
Standing desk.
Yeah. Yeah.
I make sure I stand at least 2 hours a day. And that made a huge difference on just my physical well-being.
Yeah, no, I think that's an addition that I clearly need to get. Okay, I do want to move into a quick fire round though, Tamar. So I say a short statement, you give me your immediate thoughts. You ready to dive in?
I am.
Okay, so about a minute for each. Tell me, what's the biggest challenge of your role with Slack today?
Keeping people motivated during a global pandemic.
What have you learned in terms of like the messaging to do it? And actually, is it like, does it have to be individual or can it be group?
It has to be both. The people you interact with individually, you need to understand where they are emotionally and what you can do to help them, and that you're there to support them. And as a team, constantly reinforcing the strategy and why we're here and why what we do is important, and listening at a group level. So absolutely both.
What changes post Salesforce acquisition? It's a big event. It's a big price. What changes post acquisition?
Our customer focus and our product focus does not change. What changes is now we have a huge Salesforce and marketing team that can help get Slack into the hands of more users, which I'm incredibly excited about.
What would you most like to change about the world of SaaS?
I talked about how many SaaS tools there are. I really wish they interoperated better.
What could be done to make that happen? Is that in terms of API integration?
APIs, understanding the end-to-end user journey, not just the user journey of your product, but the end-to-end user journey of workflows and what a user actually is trying to accomplish through these set of tools.
How would you? Sorry, I'm too interested. How would you do that in terms of permissioning and interoperability? Like
open APIs. So that's where we are focused. Is we want to make sure that our APIs are open and that you can build workflows and tools to span different products. So our workflows, you can add steps. We call them steps from apps. So if you have a third-party app that's integrated to Slack, you can build a workflow on Slack that actually integrates with multiple different SaaS tools.
Got you. Tell me, what's the hardest role to hire for today? It's a competitive labor market. What's the hardest role to get in?
This is maybe going to sound weird, but I think product management. And yeah. I've been, product manager for many years. I've done a lot of interviewing of product managers, and I still find it hard to find great product managers and to evaluate them. It's always a challenge.
I've interviewed 700 CEOs, and I would say 90% say product management is the hardest to hire for. You said great product managers there. Just like so hard of me to ask this. What's great product managers? Like, what does that look like?
So the difference between a good product manager and a great product manager is very big. And the great product manager, one, really understands the customer and understands what the customer is trying to achieve, and that your product needs to fit the customer's needs, not your business's needs. And two, has an intuition about products. You can't develop products by just looking at metrics. You have to have an intuition, and there's a quality bar, and there's some art involved. It's not just science.
How do you test intuition in interview processes?
So the other thing I would say is understanding human nature is really important. So I think you have to rely on questions of like, how would you design this? And so we have product managers who come to interview at Slack. Actually, we give them a prompt and they have to put together a presentation based on that prompt. And it's a lot of work, and some people opt out because they don't want to do it. But if you just ask them about products they've developed, you don't understand their thinking. And so this has been really helpful for us.
Got it. No, I like that in terms of alternative products. Tell me a moment in your life that's maybe served to change the way that you think.
So when I was young and I was trying to decide where to go to college, I was driving my father nuts, and he said, "There is no such thing as a right decision. You make a decision right," and that has stayed with me for my entire life.
Yeah, I have to say it's that's a great one. So yeah, I think that's a really, it's almost one where I'm like, damn, that's a good way to end the show. But I do want to ask this final one, which is a really great way to end the show, which is like, Slack is an ever-changing, ever-growing organization. Where do you see Slack in the next 5 years' time?
I see Slack as being the largest business to business network for communication and automation of workflows across and within enterprises.
Tamar, I always love our chats. Thank you so much for putting up with my completely wayward questions. I'm so sorry for those, but this has been so much fun. So really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Harry. It was also a lot of fun for me.